Owen Glenn at Wellington Airport about 5:30 this evening. Joining us now, Dr. Jon Johanssen, political scientist at Victoria University. John was in the Privileges Committee. Boy, that was fascinating, wasn't it, this afternoon? What did you make of it?
Wow, I grew up seeing the footage of Alexander Butterfield, talking about the whole taping system at the Irvin Committee for Nixon's Watergate. And so it was interesting in our domestic setting seeing something as dramatic as that was. Mundane, procedural, and yet high theatre. You're just looking at the faces around the room.
Not only high theatre, some of it was absurd theatre. I mean, Russell Fairbrother trying to run the defence that Owen Glenn didn't know the difference between Winston Peters and Wayne Peters, and that in fact it could have been Wayne Peters on the phone and Owen Glenn couldn't tell them apart. This is preposterous nonsense, really, if that's the kind of defence they're forced to run, isn't it?
Well, using another American, that dog doesn't exactly hunt, I don't think.
Where does this leave? Let's talk about Winston Peters first of all. Where does this leave him now?
Well, in one sense, it leaves him where he, I think he thought he would be today, which is that he needs to go in there tomorrow and vigorously defend himself. And he said to me, literally half an hour ago, that that's entirely what he intends on doing.
So you've been spoken to him this evening?
Yes, I have.
And what was his response to Owen Glenn's appearance? Because this is really problematic for him, isn't it?
Yes, and Winston believes that he can continue to, demonstrate variances between his word and Owen Glenn's, and that's what he will do tomorrow.
Which seems remarkable in the circumstances. I guess then we have to set that aside and say, who does he have to persuade? And first and foremost amongst the people he has to persuade are the voters, and we'll talk about them in a moment, but Helen Clark, right?
First and foremost, Helen Clark, because I think it is fair to say that she is going to come under unbearable pressure here, just news cycle after news cycle at this part of the election cycle. This is the last thing that she wants. But in saying all of that, the Prime Minister is also wedded to the notion of natural justice, and that means that Winston will be there tomorrow, and this is his opportunity, and I would imagine final opportunity, to actually clear these matters up or not.
So he goes before the same people that Owen Glenn went before today, and he has to come out and TKO this evidence, doesn't he? The cell phone record, the email, what appear to be a series now of smoking guns. He has to deal with them all conclusively, persuasively, or he's dog tucker?
Yes, just in the sense that the pressure is building on Clark to act, because now that Mike Williams has been brought into the frame, Clark's wiggle room and her integrity and word is also coming under question here. And at some point here, she is going to have to make that judgment. I've always thought through this whole business that it has to be the people that ultimately decide the fate of Winston Peters rather than a committee. And even the Privileges Committee itself, if it's a split finding on the matters, I don't think that actually, damns Winston. But I think that actually it comes to the crux here with the Prime Minister and the position that she adopts after Winston's testimony tomorrow.
Did we gain some insight into why the Prime Minister has been so generous towards Winston Peters? I mean, she's asked for more proof, and she said, more time, I'm not persuaded. Is that because Mike Williams is up to his neck in that? Obviously, we can't say that conclusively, because we don't know for sure that Mike Williams told Helen Clark what he was up to. But it's starting to look a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is the perception, and that perception is only going to be, be far worse tomorrow when we open our newspapers. But I actually do think that there's a genuine element here of personal rapport and trust between these two individuals.
That's unexpected, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because let's not forget that Winston is an old Tory. I mean, he did get elected to Parliament for the National Party in the first instance, who has done things like Asian bashing in the past. I mean, there is no depths to which Winston hasn't been prepared to stoop. In some respects, he's not a natural ally for a liberal, bleeding heart Prime Minister. They seem to have hit it off.
Yeah, and the Prime Minister's unbelievable adaptability has also been a surprise to me, because I always thought she was far more rigid. But it is, and Winston has consistently argued here, that, and still fervently will argue tomorrow, that he has not said anything to the Prime Minister that is inaccurate. Now, the court of public opinion is another whole matter, another whole pressure. And with this front of Mike Williams' involvement in this, it's really, can the PM at this stage of the election cycle withstand that pressure?
The other point is the court of public opinion is not the Privileges Committee, and it's not you and I.
Yep.
It's what Winston Peters traditional constituency make of all this? Will they just see their man being martyred again? Will they just see their maverick being martyred again? Or this time will they think, actually, Winston, you've gone too far?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, one of the real intriguing aspects of this to me is you know, my mum is a die-in-the-wool New Zealand firster, and she probably won't thank me for saying this on national TV tonight. But I spoke to her on the weekend, and her view was, she was toying up with changing her vote away from New Zealand First, but as a result of editorial after editorial, political commentator after political commentator describing people like my mother as conspiracy theorists, insane retards, it's actually galvanised Mum to whatever happens to Winston, Mum will go where Winston goes. And I think that denigration of that generation of New Zealanders has actually, you know, strengthened Winston's hand in his own constituency.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating day tomorrow. Dr. Jon Johanssen, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, John.
We really appreciate it. It's been an amazing day at Parliament. Okay, stay with us. After the break, we're going to change the subject entirely. We're going to talk about furniture, which is not necessarily interesting, but this stuff is interesting because it's been made in New Zealand prisons. We'll see it. We're also going to talk about online shopping, not Trade Me or Amazon or eBay, but the little boutiques.